Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm J.J. Flazanes, your host. Thank you for downloading today's episode. Today, we're going to talk about the myths of probiotics. It's the third show I've done that centers around gut health and probiotics. And now we have some new information. Originally, this show was going to air only on health and wealth. And of course, I've had a change of heart and mind because of the current state of the world. And of course, our opportunity always to increase our own immunity and our own health. So of course, I'm sharing it everywhere. There's a story that I tell to set the stage with Tina Anderson, our guest today. And the story has to do with kind of becoming a podcast coach, which is what I've been doing part-time with Doug. And we kind of started our own ultimate podcast mastermind. I'm going to put a link in the show notes for any of you out there that are podcasters and fit the description of the people we're trying to serve. The mastermind is still open for another few weeks. We will close it and then it won't be open again until next year. So if you're interested in having a conversation, if you're a podcaster or you're someone who absolutely 100% knows you're starting one, if you want to set yourself up for success and have us on your team, you can go to ultimatepodcastmastermind.com and you can fill out the form and have a conversation with us. It doesn't cost anything. There's no credit card needed. It's literally a conversation to see if you're a fit or if we can even help you. Along with that, one of the things that Tina and I talk about is her switch from one industry to another. She was originally an attorney, and that led her down a path, and she became more interested in health and wellness, and I'll read her bio here in a minute. But one of the things that I think we didn't really address or talk about in this interview is how part of this is intuitive. And for those of you that did our manifestation challenge, you know that my next class in June is strengthening intuition. So we're doing strengthening intuition, and the early bird ends on May 15th. So this week, the early bird pricing will end and will go to normal pricing. So it goes from $127 early bird to $197 or 3 payments of $75. You can go to jjflazanes.com/intuition to learn more about the course. It will be the one and only time that I do it live. You don't have to be there live, but you have an opportunity to have questions answered immediately and to work with me sort of immediately. And after this is all over, the product will exist at the same link, jjflazanes.com/intuition, and it'll be just a course that you can take at any time. So if you're interested, please check it out. But definitely, we're moving into a direction where we have to rely on and trust ourselves. How do we get to the point where we understand the messages that we give ourselves and what they mean, that we can trust them and that we're in alignment when we get them? So I believe that that's probably a big part of Tina's journey that we didn't really identify in that way, but I thought was applicable for today's show. Tina Anderson's journey into the world of health had a unique start and some unusual turns. She began her career as a trial lawyer who specialized in settling cases by bringing both sides together, a personal passion of hers. Once her second child arrived, Tina left that high-stress job behind so she could focus on her family. Luckily, she was still able to use her considerable legal skills to point her career in a new direction as the in-house counsel for a family pharmaceutical company. But what Tina saw there made her change her direction again. Frustrated by the many abuses in the pharmaceutical industry, Tina turned toward the field of natural health and found her life's work. She channeled her energy into learning all she could about disease prevention and good health maintenance. That led her to discover the importance of gut health and how connected and crucial it is for overall health and wellness. To share her discovery with the world, Tina, along with her husband, created a unique supplement that contains the superior probiotic strains of renowned researcher Dr. Simon Cutting. By promoting gut health and probiotics, Tina shares her passion for wellness, helping others live their best physical and emotional lives. Welcome to the show, Tina.
Thanks, JJ. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I haven't really talked too much recently about what we're going to talk about today, and especially not on the Health and Wealth Show, because the Health and Wealth Show was really started as a way to not only, and you do fall into this category for sure, help any wellness entrepreneur with sort of best practices. So I'm going to want to know, from your point of view with your very successful product, how to penetrate a market or use your story in social media or some of the best practices that you have found to help anyone else out there who is listening from that point of view. But really, the main purpose of the show started out as wanting to elevate and amplify the idea of health and wealth together, that many people think they're separate until one goes bad. Or, for me, who coming from a health background, people who I would find had a lot of money or were business owners or were entrepreneurs would work themselves into the ground and only care about their health when it went south. So I love sharing stories of how people uncovered either a mission like yours through the life that they led and the choices and the experiences, and also just lessons along the way. So let's start out. I want you to tell your story. I don't want to reveal yet your product because I know it comes out of your story. So why don't you take us back to really the journey of from where you were right before this all happened.
Sure. I was an attorney. I still am an attorney, but I was in litigation. I was practicing law in Chicago at a firm and working crazy hours and not feeling super satisfied in it. And then I had 3 children and decided that I really wanted more of a work-life balance. And so I went from the grind of Saturdays and crazy hours during the week to a little bit better of a work-life balance. And I was fortunate enough to get a role in a family pharmaceutical business where I was able to have more time at home with the kids and be able to still practice law and do the other things that I loved. And so I was really excited to be in the pharmaceutical world because I thought, my God, I'm helping people delivering life-saving medications. But after several years of being in the industry, we just started to notice a lot of the abuses that were going on in the industry. We started to see the overprescribing of medications, and we saw it, not only in our industry, but we saw it with family members where people were, they'd be on one pharmaceutical and the next thing they'd be on 6 different ones in a couple months and still not getting better. One pharmaceutical would cause joint pain, another one would then start causing stomach issues, and then one would cause skin rashes. And then before you know it, they had all these other symptoms and never got to the problem that they first started with. And it was interesting because my husband and I didn't live our lives like that either. With our 3 kids, we would always try to avoid antibiotics as much as possible. We would, let their fever get up without treating it right away so that, because that's of course our body's own natural mechanism to fight off infections. And so we just were kind of natural people. We tried to eat really healthy and we were like, we are not doing our life's work. I read a lot of Wayne Dyer, Norman Vincent Peale, and I knew that it was important to live a fulfilling life, to be able to do your life's work. And we weren't doing it. And so we talked to a lot of different people and did a lot of researching and soul searching and lots of prayers and affirmations. And we ended up switching career paths. And I won't do the spoiler alert. I'll wait till we go further. But that's kind of how we started becoming entrepreneurs.
So really, for you, it wasn't necessarily a physical health, although it was other people's physical health that stimulated your desire. It was more of a mental and emotional health?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we cover all of them because they're all important, but it was that sort of gut feeling of, like you said, I'm not living my life path and I don't know what that is. So, okay, so let's move on to then you're doing all this research, and then what did you discover? What were you searching for, and how did you know when you found it?
We were searching for something that was in the gut health arena because we knew that the Human Microbiome Project had come out. It was launched by the National Institutes of Health probably about 10 years ago. And we knew that gut health was so important to our overall health. We found out that, we are 10 times more bacteria than we are human. And we just started to learn more about probiotics out there and different types of, therapies that people are using for it, and found that many of them just weren't working. And through being at the right place at the right time, and, I swear it was through prayer and affirmation, we were able to license the exclusive rights to these really, really incredible probiotic strains out of London University. Dr. Simon Cutting, world-renowned probiotic expert. It was amazing. I mean, we kind of put our whole life savings into it, went through a path that, I had never been through before. I knew nothing about marketing. I knew nothing about, a label or FDA compliance or any of that. Even though I'm an attorney, I didn't, practice that area of law. So it was quite a journey, but we knew that these strains were so unique, so different, and we were really becoming disruptors in a market that was already saturated. The probiotic market had already become pretty saturated, but we were telling a very different story to consumers. And so not only did I have to learn marketing, but I had to learn how to, disrupt the story and the status quo that was already out there. But it's been awesome.
So I want to go back to why the disruption and why not other products that were already out there. And I know you were searching for your life mission. And but recently I've become my partner and I, Doug Sandler, he owns a podcast production company, and he and I have a mastermind. And when we launched the mastermind, I, realized that it was out of a need that I saw that other people had. I saw, like, in this market of podcasting, for instance, there's lots of people who are teaching podcasting, and there are a lot of people charging a lot of money to teach how to have a business around podcasting. But what I'm seeing over and over again is that there aren't results. The people that are paying the $25,000, $50,000 a year program are coming out no better off when they started. And I literally am sitting here on the sideline saying, let me help you. I can help you. And I realized it after our first session with one of our first clients, who said the 4 hours with us was worth more than the $50,000 a year she spent with somebody else. Wow. And it was like, I didn't expect to become a podcast coach, right? I did it because I saw other people doing it poorly and not getting the help that they needed, and learning from people who hadn't walked the path. So in that same structure, why did you feel a need to create a new probiotic? What was wrong with the ones that were already here?
Well, one of the big issues with most probiotics on the market, I mean, the overwhelming majority of them, is that they have difficulty surviving the gastric system. So in order to even be defined as a probiotic, it needs to arrive alive in the intestines. Most probiotics die by the time they ever get to the intestines because the stomach acid, very harsh environment, meant to be harsh, meant to not allow things to get to the intestines, but will kill most probiotic strains. The strains that are used in our product that we license are actually a spore-forming bacteria. So spore, it's not like a mushroom spore, but it has an endospore shell around itself. And it's not because we've engineered them or we've done anything to make them have this shell around them. These are this is the shell that they have on them when they're found in nature. So these spores are able to get through the gastric system 100% alive, and then they get into the intestines, where they go to work through every part of the intestinal tract. Whereas most probiotics on the market, most of them don't even get to the intestines alive, but let's say some of them did, they just would pass through, like similar to how food passes through your intestines. These strains actually get there 100% alive, but then they also stay there for about 21 to 28 days, where they're actually making a change in the gut flora and rebalancing the microbiome.
Okay. Let's talk about how we know if our probiotics are working, since most of us are not going to be testing our, anything physically inside of our bodies to say, hey, is this, what are the numbers here, whether it be blood work or whatever. So how would someone know whether or not their probiotic is actually getting to where it needs to go?
Yeah, that's a tough question. There really hasn't been a stool test that has really been accurate enough to let people know. Some of them will give you some indication. One of the ways, like when you get a stool test, people will say, the best way to explain it is if someone said, is there a lot of crime in Chicago? And, they take one sample of one particular part of Chicago that maybe has no crime, but then there's another part of Chicago that has a lot of crime. So it's the same thing with the stool samples. We don't get a real full picture of it. So unfortunately, there's not a blood test that we could go get that's really going to give us or a stool test that's going to give us a true accurate idea of what our if our intestines are healthy or not. The best way people will know is based on the symptoms that they have. And so for years, people had thought, if I have, gas or diarrhea or constipation, bloating, that kind of stuff, I'm going to need a probiotic. And of course, if you have gastrointestinal discomfort of any sort, it probably indicates you have a gut imbalance going on. But what people aren't understanding is that it's also tied, let's say you have a skin rash. Yeah, there might be some topical treatments for it, but you need to start with your gut, because most likely that irritation in your skin, whether it's acne, whether it's, psoriasis, eczema, is caused by an imbalance in your gut. Same thing with cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, dementia, all of those things are tied to an imbalance in your gut. The one that most people don't realize is mental health is also very much tied to our gut health. There is a vagus nerve that is the communication superhighway between your gut and your brain, and the gut sends signals back to the brain, and the brain sends signals back to the gut, and that has a huge impact on, and people don't think about that as like relating to your gut. If people have anxiety or depression and that kind of thing, or mood disorders, that is definitely tied to the health of your gut. So, and the other thing is that, like you were saying about, seeing that things weren't working before. I mean, we see all these people that are taking probiotics for things and they're not getting any better. I mean, and the bottom line is we need something that's actually, when you take it, you want to see that you're improving some of the, things that you're dealing with on a regular basis. And so, that's definitely what we've seen, and we have done the studies. And I know, people I always feel like we should always ask, for survivability studies. Do you have a survivability study on your probiotic that is working, and that kind of thing? But there's really, it's really hard to find any health condition that does not stem from an imbalance in your gut. So I think it's pretty safe to say that most people should be, focusing on gut health. I mean, your immune system, 80% of our immune system is found in our gut. So really important that we're focusing on gut health.
Oh, absolutely. We've done a show called Probiotics, Weight Loss, and More. I've done an antidepressants and gut health show on the Fit to Live podcast, and Spirit, Purpose, and Energy, and Nutrition and Alternative Medicine. So we have had those shows before, and the probiotic show wasn't completely 100% only about probiotics, but it really was. And we did talk about it. And at my Releasing What Weighs You Down event, we talked about brain health and the vagus nerve. So although everyone who listens to the show has not been to my live event, so they don't necessarily have all of that information. But because we're talking about sort of your life path and how that's arrived at creating a new probiotic to offer to the world that has a better survivability, right?
Yep.
Through some of the things that you're learning. Let's talk about some of the myths of probiotics, because I know for a lot of people, they're always questioning whether or not something needs to be, because it is a live culture. Mm-hmm. It's that understanding of, then shouldn't the product be refrigerated if it's supposed to be alive?
Yep. And that is my favorite myth out there, because so many people will say, oh, my doctor told me make sure you get one in the refrigerated section. And so the interesting thing is, if it needs to be refrigerated, it means that the strains can't even withstand the room temperature of the store shelf. So it needs to be refrigerated. So how in the world would it ever survive your body temperature, which is 98.6? And the answer is they really aren't. I mean, they aren't getting there alive. They're hardly even getting to the gastric system, but they are definitely not getting to the intestines alive. And, of course, companies have done things like enteric-coating them and doing different things to try to get them there alive. But once they hit the intestines, they have to deal with the bile salts, and, they still have a very, very long road ahead of them. But just the fact that it needs to be alive or in the refrigerator means that it might be alive, provided that it got through the whole, transportation. Okay. The thing is, it doesn't need to be alive in the refrigerator. It needs to be alive in the intestines. And I think that's what some people, forget, even well-intended doctors out there. So that's one of the bigger myths. The other myth that, I hear this all the time, this product has 50 billion CFUs, or colony forming units. So, or a probiotic with 50 billion is better than a probiotic with 4 billion CFUs. And there's actually no science behind that at all. And everything we do is based on science. We actually have 13 double-blind human clinical trials going on right now. We have a published study on leaky gut, which is, unheard of. We've really felt it's imperative that we elevate the standard in the supplement market. I would love to get as many people off of pharmaceuticals and onto natural supplements. And I think one of the best ways to do that is to give the industry as a whole more credibility. So we have put so many of our resources into studies and research. And, again, this is just something that's very unheard of in the probiotic industry or the supplement industry as a whole. And hopefully that's changing as we move forward. But so the 50 billion having more CFUs is not better. It's only better if you know that they all could get in there, but there's no science that's showing that more is even better than it's really, the focus needs to be on what do those 4 billion or 5 billion CFUs that go in there, what are they doing? Are they actually making a shift in the microbiome? And we did a study on it showing that we did something called a gut model study showing that with 4 billion CFUs in our product, it caused a 30% favorable shift in the gut microbiome. And this is unheard of in, the probiotic space. So I would not get caught up on 50 billion, 100 billion. There's some that are 250 billion out there, even higher. That should not be your focus. Your focus needs to be on, what products actually show that they're making a shift in the gut flora, sealing up the gut lining, and that kind of thing. Another big myth is that we need to rotate probiotics to create diversity and maintain efficacy. And, it's interesting, the idea of rotating probiotics actually originated from the realization that many probiotics stop working after a month or two of use. And the reason being is that most probiotics are too weak to cause any lasting change in the gut. But a truly effective probiotic it's not going to stop working over time. It's not necessary to surprise the gut with a new probiotic cocktail every month. When you work with, these naturally hardy forms of probiotic strains. So a true probiotic will continue to cleanse and heal your gut from the daily assaults with every dose. So that's not true either. And in fact, the scary part is that UC Davis did a study. They took 16 probiotics off of California shelves and found that only one of them met label claims. There's this, thing out there that we need diversity in our gut, and that is so true. I could not agree with you more, and agree with that statement more. And I think there's no conflict with that statement. Everybody knows when you have a healthy gut, you have a diverse gut. So a lot of companies, I think, are throwing in a whole bunch of different strains in a product. And what they're doing is throwing them in a vat, and one strain is cross-contaminating with another strain, or even worse, two strains come together and create a whole new strain. So strains that are listed on the label were not in the product, and worse, strains that were not listed on the label were actually in the product, and they weren't studied. They didn't know, if they were good probiotics or not good probiotics. So it's really important. We don't do that. We have 4 strains, and we grow all 4 of them in 4 separate vats. So really important that you're focusing on, diversity is important, but you have to know that your probiotic is actually creating diversity. You don't get diversity by switching up your probiotic from, month to month. So those are some of the bigger myths out there.
What are the 4 strains?
Bacillus indicus, Bacillus coagulans, Bacillus clausii, and Bacillus subtilis. And, you're not going to find those they're not out there very much. So they are all studied. They are actually studied strains, and they have the, identification after the strain number as well. And the Bacillus indicus is actually an incredible strain. I had mentioned we did a leaky gut study, and we actually believe that Bacillus indicus was the key to the success of that study, because Bacillus indicus actually produces antioxidants in the gut. So we don't put antioxidants into our formulation. That strain, once it gets to the intestines, starts to produce alpha and beta carotene, lycopene, lutein, astaxanthin, zeaxanthin. All these incredible carotenoids are being produced right inside the gut, exactly where they need to be absorbed. And so we know that oxidative stress is a big cause of leaky gut. And so the researchers believe that HU36 was actually the key to helping, reduce that oxidative stress and combat that oxidative stress.
I think it's great that you're doing studies on leaky gut, and it does legitimize this idea that Western medicine seems to not want to pay attention to. I'd love to do that study and add on, the effects of pharmaceuticals, which I'm sure you probably have, right, in some way, or talk about like what the negative effects of pharmaceuticals in the gut are, like killing your bacteria, killing all your gut flora.
Particularly antibiotics. Yes,
right. But then also even on the emotional side, because I think that what people don't realize is the chemistry, if you will, that's created inside our bodies. Like Bruce Lipton talks about the biology of belief, like the way that we feel, the way that we interpret things, the way that we hold stress and emotions affects how our body produces or doesn't produce many chemicals within our brains and then therefore our bodies. And I know for me, a lot of people that I work with who have gut health issues, besides the fact that they really need to be eliminating many of the foods that they eat and
Mhm.
adding probiotics, it's also stress related. And that's one of the first places people go in their bodies is this idea of that they hold stress or worry in the gut area. So speak to if like some of the studies that you're doing, what are some of the factors involved that you're testing or monitoring or comparing from study to study?
Yeah, no, I'm so glad you brought that up, JJ, because that is super, super important. We know that there's like we talked about, the huge gut brain connection. And so many people will ask me, what things can I do for gut health, where I don't have to spend money? And there's plenty of things you could do where you don't have to spend money on a probiotic. First being mindfulness practices, the deep breathing, meditation, all those types of things are so compelling on our gut health. And one of the studies, the leaky gut study actually that we did, actually showed us that it decreased ghrelin. So and what that's telling us is that after a subject ate, it actually was decreased the hunger hormone. So what that's telling us is that when your gut is healthy, it actually is sending more, it's increasing the communication between your gut and your brain. So that's one study that we did, that the leaky gut study actually revealed that these strains are actually increasing the communication between the gut and the brain. But I could not agree. Mindfulness is so important when it comes to taking care of your gut health and eliminating stress, and mindfulness practices and affirmations, and saying the words, creating your life, and just telling yourself that you're calm. But we have to make lifestyle changes to heal our gut. I mean, absolutely, no doubt about that.
On the leaky gut studies, are you also considering or looking at what people are eating, right? Because if we're taking somebody who has a challenging diet on the gut and then they take probiotics versus someone who has a cleaner diet for the gut and taking probiotics, are you monitoring that, or is there anything that you have to say about that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. We gave both the placebo and the treated group the same challenge meal. So what we did is we gave them a McDonald's breakfast, like a McDonald's breakfast, and both I know it's terrible that we did that, but it's just because we wanted a challenge meal to see how the gut would react. And we saw that the leakiness occurred. And these were young, healthy subjects that we had no idea. 55% of these young, healthy college students had a leaky gut and didn't know it. And then sent them home with the probiotic, and half with the probiotic, half with the placebo, and gave no other diet. There were no other dietary or lifestyle modifications at all. And so we all know what college students do to their bodies. And so they came back after 30 days, gave them both subjects, both groups, the same challenge meal, and saw that there was a 42% reduction in LPS toxins in the bloodstream in the treated group. And the worst part is there was actually an increase in LPS toxins from the first time they were tested to the second in the placebo group. So that lets us know that every time we are eating, especially a challenge meal, but every time we're eating and we have a leakiness in our gut, we're causing this constant inflammatory response, which of course is why intermittent fasting is so popular and such a great option for people to also help their gut health and support their gut health. I'm a huge fan of intermittent fasting for supporting our gut health too.
Yep, we have done a show on intermittent fasting and on the fasting mimicking diet. And in my inner circle membership, we do a collective group supported fasting mimicking diet every couple of months. So we've done, I think, 2 or 3 of them. I've done about 4 or 5 of those, again, to increase immunity and to help detox the body and to help definitely with the gut. So this is all obviously things that I focus on and have been for years in terms of the health aspect. I want to pivot for a second, but before we do, why don't you tell everybody about your company and about some of the products that you offer?
Oh, sure. My company is called Just Thrive, and we're at justthrivehealth.com. But we have a probiotic. It's 100% spore-based probiotic and antioxidant. We have a prebiotic, which was specially formulated to only target the beneficial bacteria. Sometimes with prebiotic, it's hard for them to distinguish between the good bacteria and the bad bacteria, so they may make a problem worse. One of the big mantras in our company is that we only bring products that are missing and truly needed in the market. So it took us a while to formulate a prebiotic, because even though we're such a gut health company, but because we did not want to create a prebiotic that actually made the problem worse. So we have our probiotic, our prebiotic, and then we have our IgG product, which IgG stands for immunoglobulin G. The role of immunoglobulins in our body, particularly immunoglobulin G, is to attack antigens. So things like bacterial, viruses, environmental toxins, that type, like pathogenic bacteria, environmental toxins. And so IgG in the body its role in the body is to bind them, neutralize them, and have the body safely remove them. So our IgG is giving our body more support, particularly in our gut, to help the IG support the IgG that we already have in our body. Really, really great product. It's dairy free. People a lot of times go to colostrum for IgG, and the problem with colostrum sometimes is that it has dairy in it. There's no dairy in ours. Ours is bovine derived, and it has 12 to 18% more IgG than you would find in most colostrums. We also have a gluten away product that's meant for accidental exposure to gluten. It's definitely not meant to replace a gluten-free diet, but it's very, very key to help. There was a study that came out that showed that upwards of 50% of foods that are labeled gluten-free actually contain gluten in it. So it's just for those times where people who have celiac or have really severe gluten intolerances that go out to dinner and they may, accidentally get exposed to some accidental gluten. So really, really great thought out formulation with some great enzymes in there. And then we have our vitamin K27 product, which is kind of away from the gut health scenario. Vitamin K27, really important for heart health and bone health. The role of vitamin K27 in the body is to remove calcium from the arteries and put them into the bone. So we have a very, very thought out formulation, pharmaceutical grade, been tested by, with pharmaceutical standards for that delivery of the vitamin K27. So there's so many compelling studies on vitamin K27 for heart health, bone health. It's actually one of the most well-studied nutrients out there. And really important, and majority of our population is deficient in vitamin K2. And when you're taking high amounts of vitamin D, it's really important to be supplementing with K2 because it increases our body's demand for K2 when we take vitamin D. So just know that whenever we're always approached by raw material suppliers and that kind of thing, but we are not just, vitamin C is obviously a really important vitamin to be taken on a regular basis, but there's lots of companies doing vitamin C really, really well. And we don't do that. That's not, we're not looking to have 100 different SKUs. We're looking more to focus on products that are really making a difference. And this time that we're going through right now, especially is, more important than ever to know that, it's so important to be taking care of our gut health.
Absolutely. And for those of you that have attended Releasing What Weighs You Down this year, 2020, you got a sample of the Just Thrive probiotic. And I want to pivot right now to the business side of your company and the mission base and things that you have found for other people who are listening who are wellness entrepreneurs, whether it be they have a product, they're developing a product, or they're just wanting to penetrate the market differently. What would your advice be to them?
One of the things we've had the most success with, I think, is working with different influencers and affiliates, and making it just to building really true and genuine relationships with them. I've now become such good friends with a lot of the influencers and affiliates that we work with because we are all so like-minded. We have the exact same mission in mind, and that's educating and empowering people to take health into their own hands. And we've just had some really great success working with influencers and affiliates and really building up our email marketing platform. I think email marketing, I keep waiting for the day that it's not going to be effective, but it really has, for us at least, it's been one of our most effective tools. We have a lot of education that we share with customers. We have a lot of data that we share and information. And so I think that people really do want to hear from us and they want information from us. So we've had some great success with both email marketing and influencer outreach and that kind of thing.
Well, I'm happy to say I think I'm part of that new group of influencers and affiliates because we are sharing this here on my show and we will be sharing it in the email. So for anyone who wants to check out these products and get some ASAP, you go to justthrivehealth.com and use the code JJ for 15% off. And that's 15% off of any order, correct?
Yep, any order site-wide.
Great. So justthrivehealth.com. And you can go to the link in the show notes as well. But again, it's justthrivehealth.com and use the code JJ for 15% off your order. So if someone was starting out and they just wanted to get started and they weren't sure what they needed, what would be your recommendation as to where to start?
I would definitely start with the probiotic for sure. That's ground zero for health. And just start one a day with food. It's the easiest thing you could do for taking care of your gut health. And then I would do the prebiotic, maybe a couple of weeks later. But during this time where we're focusing on our immune system, the probiotic would be key. And then the IgG is also another really important one for immune support. But the probiotic, I would just go one a day with food. And it's the easiest thing you could do.
Absolutely. I agree. And it's something that you want to have as part of your regular regimen anyway. And whether we're in a crisis for immunity or not, right? We want to constantly,
Right.
just like our bodies, you're not going to exercise one time and think you're strong and build muscle and reduce your body fat in one session. So it's over time, it's always what you do mostly, not what you do occasionally that helps to build something up. So everybody make sure that you try these probiotics ASAP. So, any last words, Tina, that you would have for people that are listening, either about starting a business, following your passion, working on your health, or how to best combine the idea of health and wealth in your future and set yourself up for success?
Oh, wow. That could be a whole other podcast, JJ. But I think one of the things, one of my big themes in my life is gratitude. And I just think that, especially during the time that we're going through and all of that, is just we need to focus on gratitude. And I think gratitude allows us to shift our focus all the time. I feel horrible for what people are going through. But I think that if we just shift our focus and be grateful for the things that we do have in our life is really important. And that has helped me a lot, both personally as well as professionally. And I think if everybody could kind of just focus on that, a lot of things start to fall into place. It's pretty incredible.
Well, thank you for your wonderful product and for your story and inspiration today and for, helping people to understand that. And I think, like you said, one of the things that's working for you is in terms of emails and influencers and affiliates, because we buy from people that we trust, having you on the show, having people hear your story, having you talk about not making a bunch of products, but making products that are needed and just high quality and something they couldn't find in the market is something that makes people trust you and want to try what you have versus, like you said, someone who's on a shelf otherwise, and I don't know them and I don't know their story. I don't know what's in their product and I may not know what's in yours either, but at least now I can trust you a little bit more. I can take my intuition and use that to determine whether or not it's something I want to try. And I appreciate the amount of scientific studies that you are providing and working on and legitimizing leaky gut for all of us, because it is a real thing for everybody who's out there. And I do believe in everything that you've said, and I agree 100% about our immunity, about gut health and our mood. We've done a bunch of shows on that in the past, but now is the best time of ever before to really take serious look at your health in a new way. And if you're someone who's been afraid recently of your own immunity, maybe now's the time to increase the focus on that and to use this time and space to identify maybe an area where you could be doing better and that would help you in the future. So justthrivehealth.com, JJ for 15% off. If you don't have a current probiotic that you love, rush right now and get yours and get started. It's never too late to start building your gut health and your immunity. And Tina, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks so much for having me, JJ. It was a lot of fun.